Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 146 of the Citrix session. I'm your host today, Andy Whiteside. I've got Bill, Todd, and Jeremy with us. Bill, how's it going?
Going great, Andy. Can't complain.
You happy to be here on October 16th, 2023? I got to get my date in there, so I have it time stamped.
Sure. Yeah.
That was like product placement, wasn't it?
Bill, what's been going on in your world?
Oh, a little bit of this, trying to be taxi driver to teenagers.
Yeah. How much longer do you have before one of them can drive?
Very soon.
And will you let the other one ride with that one that can drive?
To the extent that they're allowed to by law, yes.
Will you buy them a great big station wagon looking car?
They're driving either my SUV or my wife's SUV.
Okay, that's pretty big, pretty safe.
Yeah,
it's pretty safe. At some point, because both of you have kids that are a little bit older, so you've thought through this, especially you, Andy. So you get some kids in college. I do want to understand the strategy around the vehicles once they reach a certain age. So I'm not there yet. My oldest is 14, so she's right on the verge. Which, by the way, I'm not ready for. But I'm trying to think through. Man, what do you do? I want her to have some skin in the game with this car. Like I want her to save some money and put something towards it. She's not driving my F-150. Let's to be clear about that. And I don't know if she wants to be seen in a Honda Odyssey, but I know she wants to get around. So there's some strategery that's got to go on here that I have not decided to take on yet.
So here's what we did. We got my girls both of them have like 2013 Honda Accords, good, reliable car.
Mm-hmm.
And my son has a 2007 Ford Edge. Now, I also have personally a Jeep that's 10 or so years old, a Bronco that's a couple years old. I've got a little BMW sports car, all like older, not super nice cars. Mm-hmm. And as they got older, I allowed them to drive those. And that has bitten me at least once where they wrecked those too. But something cost effective and reliable like a Camry or an Accord. That's what we did. And in all honesty, we pretty much pay for the whole thing, but we threaten them all the time. I have good kids.
I think the affordability and reliability are the two critical factors. I had a friend that had 4 kids, and he bought an old Massachusetts State Police cruiser, the big Crown Victorias.
Yeah.
For 3 reasons. Number 1 is it was safe. It was like driving a tank. Number 2, it was big enough that it could fit all their friends in them. And number 3 is the thing guzzled gas like you wouldn't believe. So they couldn't afford to go far.
Yeah.
And if they did go far, they could bring everyone with them. And if they got into any type of problem, they could walk away from it, right? But it lasted all 4 kids.
Yeah. There's certainly
impressive.
Some theory to that.
That's impressive.
But I will tell you this, wait until you get the insurance bills, because
that's the one thing we haven't talked about.
The discrepancy between what a boy has for insurance versus what a girl gets for insurance rates. With mine, it was about $2,500 difference.
Which one? Which was higher?
The Kyle's.
In my situation, the girls were higher.
In Massachusetts, it was much higher. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's the voices of Jeremy Myers and Todd Smith. Well, thank you guys for being here. I'm going to jump into the blog, but first I got to do the commercial. If you're a Citrix customer and you are not getting the value out of the platform, out of the product set, aka platform, that you should be, then you need to reach out to Citrix Cloud Software Group and XenTegra as your partner. I am extremely frustrated by the number of people that believe Citrix is dying. The technology is getting better. I am extremely frustrated by the number of people that think Citrix is too expensive. It's not. You just need to make sure you're getting the value out of the product and the platform. And that's why partners exist, and specifically why XenTegra exists, to make that all make sense. All right. So today's blog that we decided to do, let me share my screen.
By the way, not unlike the car conversation, operational and efficiency. How about that?
Absolutely. So today's blog is by our friend Monica Grismer. Came out a few weeks ago, actually late June, and it's four new features for operational and IT efficiency in any environment. Guys, why is it important? Bill, I'll start with you. Why is it important that we cover this blog?
Well, principally to provide evidence of what Citrix is doing to help improve the lives of administrators and organizations around the delivery of desktops and applications to their end users. I mean, there's a lot of efficiencies we'll talk in the product. We'll talk about just a few of them today, but there's a whole lot of new things in the product that really make lives easier for everyone as it relates to virtualizing those workloads.
Well, that goes back to my comment a minute ago. Citrix is investing in their mainstream product, the CVAD and DAS products, in a exponential way. Meanwhile, the rest of the world thinks the company's going out of business tomorrow. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Now's the time. Now's when it's getting better. You should be excited, not concerned that there's a problem.
Absolutely, it's getting better and very much on par. The Citrix DAS product, the desktops as a service product, and the on-premises Citrix virtual apps and desktops are very similar in terms of features and functionality, almost exactly. And that's the objective that Citrix is trying to get to is feature parity between those two delivery methods.
And not a lot of companies are doing that. A lot of companies are forcing you in the direction that they want you to go. Citrix is being open. Todd, in this middle paragraph in the opening section, Monica highlights the term destination hybrid. Why is that relevant to this conversation?
So destination hybrid was something that was introduced earlier this year. There's a great blog post and video out there as well. If you go and search destination hybrid, you'll find that there was a video that was done by Calvin Shu, who was one of our product leaders, talking about the fact that a lot of organizations are not ready to go to the cloud, and they're limited in their ability to go to the cloud. So why force them to go to the cloud? But yet they still need to be able to have the option of moving from their on-prem or from a strictly on-prem environment. So this destination hybrid really kind of helps us fulfill this need from a customer perspective of being extremely flexible and at the same time being able to drive the value where needed or where possible, right? So if you need to have burst capabilities, maybe that's a great cloud option or cloud use case. But yeah, regulations require that you stay on-prem, right, in your secure data centers. So it really kind of gives that flexibility. And this was kind of the introduction of our new universal licensing model as well.
Yeah. I'll throw in the XenTegra effect on that, where you've got public cloud, you've got maybe XenTegra data center, which would be somewhat private cloud. You could have your own data center where we, put a rack in your colo, or maybe even in your actual physical data center. I mean, hybrid can be a lot of things these days, and having the PaaS, the platform as a service, with Citrix, either in your own data center or coming from the cloud, enabling that is it makes your path forward something that is controllable by you, but not limited in any direction. Jeremy, your take on this blog and why it's relevant?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that sticks out is, number one, a lot of the things in this list here are around automation and just kind of like infrastructure as code. The fact that we're opening up the APIs to make it easier to code, the ability to spin things up and things like that, right? The idea that we're automating an upgrade process, right? I mean, these are the things that IT departments are trying to look across their entire product stack is, they're having to do more with less. And so what can I upgrade? What can I automate rather? And what can I code, script, things like that, just to make my life easier, right? And so, a lot of the operational efficiencies here is, listen, Web Studio is fantastic, but I think under the hood, the thing that's more important is the fact that we get APIs running the whole thing, right? So it makes it really easy to sort of orchestrate what you've got running. So, I love the talk here, because the idea is we are trying to build some feature parity, to Bill's point. I think the universal license was long overdue. I think if you have interacted with a Citrix sales team over the past 5 years, the focus has been cloud, cloud, cloud. And what we're saying is, listen, you do what you need to do to support your environment. You got a license that supports every scenario, right? So let's make it so that the feature parity is there, regardless of which path you choose. And listen, we'll help you get there.
Yeah. I'll do my quick service now commercial in the middle of all this. The orchestration for all this, the aggregation for all this, and XenTegra all this service now, and just makes that whole bringing it all together story just complete.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jeremy, I'll go to you since we're with you now. Number one, the first one Monica calls out is VDA upgrade service. What is it and why is it relevant?
So, now when you install a VDA into, a desktop or even a multi-session machine, anytime you needed to go upgrade the VDA itself, it required you to basically unpack this guy, spin up the machine, upgrade the VDA, you reboot, go through all the entire process there. And I think over time, the idea is, how much of that can we automate? And so that's what we've done here. So we've got a service that will allow you to upgrade the VDA software within a certain kind of VDA. So for instance, if you understand how MCS and PVS work, maybe not a good fit there because we have this golden state concept with these provisioning technologies. So if you got a pooled desktop, doesn't necessarily make sense to use the VDA service there. But if you've got dedicated desktops, if you've got remote PC desktops, for instance, you've got a feature now that basically you can upgrade automatically version numbers and actually define what level of code you want to be behind as well. So this is a service that'll go out and proactively upgrade the VDAs based on a schedule you define. It's pretty slick.
Todd, your thoughts on this?
So I think it's once again, this is kind of driving on the automation and becoming more efficient. And efficiency in terms of, instead of wasting man hours and man weeks and a lot of valuable resources on doing upgrades and doing, you can push it out and you can actually leverage some of the technologies to free up those resources to do other things that may be considered more valuable.
Yeah, you certainly shouldn't be spending your time messing with it. So help me understand this. If I've got a persistent, this is going to manage the VDA upgrade within the persistent. And if I've got a non-persistent, like a multi-session, this is just going to upgrade and the master image, or of all machines that boot up from the master image?
So right now, it's not something that's supported in a pooled scenario. It's only supported if you've got persistent machines or remote PC. Again, that's not. So I make that difference there because if you're using PVS, if you're using MCS to provision persistent desktops, that's supported. And if you're using remote PC, that's supported, things like that. But, right now it's not for a pooled scenario. So again, in a pooled scenario, you'd have to spin up your golden image, run the script or do it by hand, however you choose to upgrade your golden images. But this is only going to be for a persistent machine.
Okay. Bill, your thoughts on this overall concept with the VDA upgrade service?
Yeah, the days of having to do next finish are are hopefully coming to an end or close to an end. And the other piece of that goes along with it is, we talk about not taking as much time. What we have found from a consulting engagement is a lot of organizations either don't have strong Citrix expertise or they don't have enough of it. They've got one guy or two guys in a medium-sized organization that are managing all of the IT or much of the IT. So it's not really that it certainly makes it more efficient, but it also makes it more readily available to those folks and more quickly able to complete by those folks that are overburdened as it is.
Because think about what you don't have to do, Andy. You don't have to go find the download. Which one am I using? Single user, multi-session, that sort of thing. And the cool thing is you can define what your standard is for VDA as well. So if you want to standardize on the LTSR, you can have it upgrade you to the latest LTSR. If you want to standardize on the current release, you can do that as well. So there's a few different options there just to be aware of.
And going back to ServiceNow again, because it's all done through this API in the process, now I can centralize it there, push it from there, and can measure and control it from there. All right, Todd, I'll go to you next. Web Studio for on-premises deployments. Help us understand where the value in this is.
Yeah, so the biggest value here is, when we introduced Web Studio, it was a different look and feel than the on-prem Studio. It was accessible via traditional web interfaces or web design capabilities. What this really does is it brings the Web Studio and the on-prem Studio kind of into parity with each other. But with the Web Studio, this is where we started bringing a lot more of the API calls into one place. So that helps with the automation, that helps with a lot of the scripting, that helps with a lot of the customers out there that are looking to continuing to automate as many processes as possible, reduce that amount of, reduce the number of hours and resources required to do upgrades and things like that. we've also added in a lot of capabilities into the Web Studio around some of the security measures that are out there. So one of those being enforcing a timeout on your studio, right? So a lot of organizations where studio is really what gives you access to the keys to the kingdom, you want to be able to say, hey, you know what, that's not a console that I want to have up and running all the time, right? I want to have a little bit more stricter policy controls on that. I also want to be able to do more with exporting some of the information out and being able to import tasks from something like ServiceNow to be able to kick off workflows within Studio, whether it be patch management, whether it be fixing an application. That's all done within Studio. That's not something that you would do traditionally inside Director.
Yeah. And you want that same capabilities on-prem as well as in the cloud.
Absolutely.
I'm going to make I'm going to comment real quick. We've mentioned things like ServiceNow. ServiceNow's still a couple of times already. And I was at an event last week with other partners, and one of them literally said to me, he didn't know how ServiceNow was relevant in Citrix. And I'm like, I don't know how you could begin to say that with all the APIs and things that are part of every product, including the Citrix DAS and CVAD products these days, and where ServiceNow plays. Jeremy, your thoughts?
Man, so I have a tough time. It just seems so easy to connect the dots. I don't know who said that, but I think this is where, when you get into IT departments, like, this is driving the conversation. How much can I automate, right? Is a big part of that. And I think there's an obvious tie-in with ServiceNow. In fact, we've covered the ITSM adapter on several occasions now.
Yeah.
And, the fact that a lot of this is just tailored for exactly these kinds of use cases, right? So, as much as this is about Web Studio, I think under the hood, it's just a UI. First of all, we needed to get off MMCs, let's be honest. But I think this is just a UI for really what's happening under the hood. Is you got an orchestration service that's just built on APIs now. I mean, this is, anyone you talk to who was trying to automate things, they're talking about infrastructure as code. How can we deploy using some of our software tools? We shouldn't be, this is not for everyone. I get that, but I think this is what we're being asked for a lot of times. How can we take a hands-off approach to doing this?
I think we could have a whole podcast on MMCs and whether they were good or bad. They got us through the time we needed to get through. We're past that now for sure.
Well, that was back when RPC calls made sense, right? The framework was actually, the idea was modular. I've got this thing and I'm just dropping plugins into my MMC that do all sorts of crazy things. But that was very desktop centric when I was doing this from a console from my desktop. I loved it. But now they just feel like dinosaurs.
And I think, Andy, to your point, or the question that you asked about how could someone not be aware of this, if you're making a lot of money selling services to do break fix type of things, or those daily administrative tasks, you're going to see ServiceNow as a threat. You're going to see this integration as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it and say, how do I continue to deliver value to my customers? It's helping them find ways to reduce cost in areas where those cost reductions are available, right? So if you're looking at it from a perspective that the value I bring as a reseller and as a partner is to help my customers get value and get the most out of their spend, you would want to make sure that they're aware that there's tools and there's new capabilities out there that they could take advantage of to potentially, make better investments in other areas that are going to derive value into the other areas of the business.
Right. There's other places we should be spending our human time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Bill, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. What you just said, Andy, is, better places for us to spend our effort. And I think part of that is, given that this is now all modular and available via the REST APIs, like you said, building workflows in ServiceNow to do things like add users to apps, or add groups to apps, or provision desktops, or deprovision desktops. All those things are no longer a lot of clicks. It's really just a simple workflow within ServiceNow that does it for you. So the value add here is obviously building the platform, is building the environment initially is a value add, but tying something like ServiceNow into it and the effort that takes is where the right kind of partner can make the difference to get those integrations built for you, especially a partner that knows both platforms very well.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking through. I had a conversation recently with a ServiceNow person that said, okay, I get you do a ServiceNow Citrix podcast, but why should I care? And I'm like, what do you mean? Why should you care? It's core to what you guys do. So it's not just other partners and customers. It's even people there don't see it for what it really is. Bill, we'll go to you first one. Automatic agent upgrades.
Yeah. So obviously when you're installing things like WEM, which is the one that's called out in this part of the blog, there's a lot involved in doing that. It's more than just next finish. You've got to be considerate of people that are in the environment and when you can schedule it and the impact of doing such an upgrade on performance. So this automatic agent upgrade kind of is very similar to what we were talking about earlier with respect to the VDA upgrades, in the sense that you can automate the process, particularly of WEM. And I imagine, Jeremy and Todd can keep me honest here, but I imagine this will extend to other agents going forward, and other parts of the Citrix ecosystem. But this is a key one that's very important to admins, and the ability to upgrade this off hours and schedule it without having to impact user performance is key, which is what this appears to all be about.
Hey, before Jeremy and Todd, I want to point this out. We had the VDA upgrade, we had the automatic agent upgrades. All of this is enabling the world of persistent VDI workloads to be more mainstream. I've said this several times on this podcast, and it hit me earlier in the year. We've really sold ourselves short by not talking more about persistent VDI and all the benefits of that above and beyond just doing, deployed desktops. This is just more to make that better, isn't it, Jeremy?
I would think so. I mean, again, this is, well, I think this is a sneaky way to bring up WEM in general, right? So we're talking about the update service, which is awesome. Listen, it's a checkbox inside the WEM console. There's not much to go turn this thing on. That's
Right.
Thing number one. But thing number two is this service is come a long way from when we acquired it several years ago, right? So it used to be, first of all, it's always been great. Well, it's always been good. There have been some challenges to it, especially around deploying it on-prem. There were some infrastructure requirements and things like that. But it's been turned into a service. It's been modernized in terms of like a UI. And if you've not checked out WEM in a while, you really need to take a look at it. In fact, Andy, we should probably do a podcast just on WEM one day, just to cover what this service is, what it does, and really, the value you get out of it, because there is a lot to WEM. And what's interesting, and the reason this feature is so important is the features that are coming to WEM are fast and furious. There are so many things that are being migrated into WEM. It's pretty fantastic. So if you don't have a way to keep up with just keeping your agents updated, you're going to lose out on a lot of those features.
Right.
Go ahead, Todd, your turn.
Yeah, and once again, I think there's a lot of capabilities here that are going to do a customer, take care of a customer's need to improve efficiencies. Once again, reuse those resources as much as possible and be able to retask those folks to do other things that have more value and that are more complex, right? We're talking about automating some admin tasks that are painful because they're boring and they're very menial. Put someone, put your smartest people on the toughest problems.
And give them the tools to scale themselves.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Jim, I'll come back to you. Auto scale for on-premises. Of course, it's in the cloud already.
It's in the cloud already. I think originally the idea behind auto scaling was, obviously to optimize costs for, your cloud deployment. So for instance, every time you have a machine turned on in the cloud, it's ticking the meter. It costs money. So, you don't want to have machines running that aren't being used. So if you can scale them up and down, based on your usage patterns, and actually do it intelligently. So based on load, based on schedule, what have you, obviously that makes sense. But now we're extending that on-prem. I think much of that probably had to do with Web Studio itself and some of the APIs under the hood that make that happen. But, one of the things that we've talked about on this podcast several times, and maybe it's a good chance to bring it up yet again, is, we talk about scaling in the cloud because of cost. We're doing this on-prem. Like, what is the use case for doing it on-prem, right? We've got hardware with maybe a sunk cost. Maybe we're talking about deployments that have been lifted and shifted into a cloud. So obviously, having this feature in a quote unquote on-premise control plane that is managing cloud resources might be the use case, but maybe that's a can of worms too. But
and honestly, Jeremy, I think one of the things that gets overlooked is something that has been around forever, and that is cost management in your on-prem environment just as much, right? So you want to be able to take a look at your electrical bill nowadays, right? Those costs are going up. That has nothing to do with the cloud. That has everything to do with your on-prem and your usage. And my mother-in-law, when she used to come over to the house, I love her to death, but she used to turn off every light in the room that was not occupied, because it was that mentality of reducing. She was taking care of my electrical costs.
Yeah.
Autoscale is the same thing, right? Being able to go and turn off things that aren't being used and being able to leverage and help reduce that cost structure. It has, we introduced this as part of a cloud feature, and probably should have at the same time put it into the on-prem world as well.
Well, I think what Jeremy pointed out, which I thought was great, is the Web Studio being on-prem now enables all this goodness to come with it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Bill, your thoughts on for on-premises?
Yeah, on-prem doesn't necessarily mean what Jeremy said earlier, doesn't necessarily mean on-prem. It could mean you building the components in the cloud and then orchestrating and controlling the VDAs or the workloads in the cloud. Obviously, this becomes critical there from a cost perspective. But then to Todd's point, when you think about co-location facilities, where a lot of customers, if they have a quote unquote private cloud or on-prem data center, it's in a colo today. And colos really measure costs in three ways: real estate, bandwidth, and power and cooling. So if you're at scale and you can spin down using autoscale a number of machines in the evening, that's going to reduce, in theory, it's going to like turning the lights off in the rooms that aren't occupied, right? It's going to reduce your power bill over time. So these capabilities, while they may at first glance seem like they're really cloud focused, they can have an impact for those that are running things in a colo or even on premises in a customer's data center.
I mean, in parallel, we've got more efficient light bulbs, but it still matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Todd, I'll let you go first. Take us home on the closing summary here.
Yeah, so I think what we've talked about today is ways to increase that efficiency and reduce those IT administration costs, or at least identify ways to do that, right? So, if you look at a combination, you don't have to use all four of these, but if you can identify something that's going to be meaningful to you as your organization, it's gonna help you save some money. It's going to help you reduce some of those inefficiencies and free up resources to do other things. Because the days of just going out and having an infinite supply of resources, whether they be physical resources or compute resources or even human resources, you're going to have to kind of make those decisions. And the best way to free up resources is to find ways to do automation.
Yeah, I think this is amazing conversation. Meanwhile, I'm on this podcast taking a picture of my health insurance cards. My wife sent me a text with a picture of a Post-it note and told me to send a copy of the health insurance. Like, there's areas of our life all over the place where we need to get more efficient. Meanwhile, sometimes we're stuck in this world. Jeremy, your thoughts on the overall idea that Citrix is investing in efficiencies for its customers, current and future customers. There should be new ones coming along.
Listen, I think every time I get on this podcast, I probably socialize, automation, and it's not just from an administrative perspective. As an IT guy, listen, I don't want to be working on certain things. I don't want to manually install things. I'm at the point now. 20 years ago, I would have said, the really good admin is the one who figures out how to not get out of his chair, right? If he can script something or automate something, it just opens up. We can do so many other things, right? So that was me just being very selfish. But I think now, IT has got to show value back to the business. And so being able to, just be more efficient with cost, absolutely. Operations wise, we have more to do with less people. So anything that we can automate, I think that is what we're feeding into the product. So I think that's a differentiator because I think that's where we're investing a lot of our time. So I think we've got an upcoming podcast we'd like to do where we're covering some of the new features even more recently. And I think that'll be a big theme. In fact, it's one of the 4 pillars in anything that product management, socializes around the product is, how are we increasing, operations and IT efficiency?
Yeah. And to some degree, things we talked about here, the agents, the updates of the agents, the update of the VDA, the management of things through WIMs. These are table stakes at this point and things that we've done manually way too long. Bill, when you guys are rolling out projects, do you kind of coach people into leveraging this stuff, or is that a follow-up item?
No, it's definitely something. I mean, I don't know relative to the VDA upgrade wizard, but I know that we've obviously used the Web Studio, and as far as WIM is concerned, that is something we talk with customers about on just about every project. Is about the benefits of that because if you go back a couple of years, WIM has always been a great product, to Jeremy's point, but it had some pretty significant infrastructure pieces to make it work when it was on premises. When it was fully baked on premises, you had to have the WIM servers, and you had to have a back-end database that supported that, and then the agents. Now it's a cloud service. And if you run it on premises, you could point it to the cloud service, and all you need is the agents. Now, if you want to do it 100% on prem, you still have some of those challenges, but really it's much simpler to implement, and it's really a solid product. And we talk with customers about it on just about every project.
Yeah. Here's what's great about it too, is if you're a customer who has got a universal license, right? So, let's just say as a part of your hybrid journey, going back to the beginning of this article, you've got an on-prem environment, or at least a customer managed plane. One of the first things you can do without lifting and shifting and migrating everything to cloud managed is just start leveraging, turn on the WIM service, integrate that into your on-prem environment. That's something you can do today.
Right.
It's an easy way to get started, and it's pretty powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think I think on that comment, to add in what Bill said as well, WEM should not be treated as a separate project. This should be included in all of your projects that you're doing. Like Jeremy said, just being able to turn it on to get it to start working. It's not a huge installation process, but the benefits you're going to get are almost immediate.
Well, a lot of times we implement it, or we'll talk about it, and we'll actually implement it just for CPU and memory optimization.
Yep.
Then it kind of becomes the Trojan horse, and they start saying, well, what can I do this? Yeah, you can do that in WIM. Can I do custom icons by user? Can I do drive mappings and get rid of my logon scripts? All of these things you can do in WIM. So it adds more value once you get it in the environment.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me. Let's get started doing something, and you'll see the benefits, and then it should steamroll. It should just keep like a flywheel type effect. Well, guys, thanks for covering those topics, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Todd, where are you at this week? You at home, or you up in Canada?
Come home all this week.
That's good. Now
I was in Canada for last week, most of the week. Yeah.
We deal with a lot of Canadians, and they somewhat try to shut us down from coming up there from this point on until like April. Do you just have to go deal with it?
Yep. You just you just add layers, or some people are more attuned to more adapt to dealing with the cold weather.
Yeah.
When you look like a polar bear, like I am.
I was about to say, do you fit in well up there? I think you probably do.
I do. It's easier to so just throw on an extra couple of layers, and you'll be all set.
Todd just walks off t-shirt and shorts, no matter what the conditions are.
Yeah, it's still shorts weather up there.
Amazing. So Andy, why are they pushing back on you coming up? Is it because they find out where you're from and they go, "Hey, listen, guy, you're not ready for this"?
No, it's actually not that. It's we try to do events, all these marketing events, and they say people don't want to do events after, say, October 1st because of the issues with potential weather.
So they just want to, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeremy, how about your week? What's the rest of it look like?
Listen, I got a fairly busy week here. I'm in the office playing a little bit of catch up, so but nothing too crazy.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm sure the wife and kids love that.
Well, they do. Luckily, the kids are actually at school this week. So last week we had a case of the kindergarten cooties. So we had just what happens this time of year, and it spread to dad, but dad's over it, and everyone's back at school this week, which is good for dad.
Made you stronger.
It did make me stronger. Anything to build the immune system.
Bill, any cooties going on over there?
No cooties here. This week's relatively busy, like just about every week here, and but this week, of course, I'm a big baseball fan, and it's the League Championship Series week. Even though my Boston Red Sox aren't in it, I'm still watching. So last night was a late night, and I'll probably have a few more this week.
Yeah,
I'm not
baseball game was
sure.
on last night, I immediately turned it to the football game, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know.
Bill, I'm not sure if that was a poke at the Braves going down in the.
No, Braves are my number 2.
Yeah, it was tough. 2 years in a row against the Phillies.
I know.
First series out. Best record in baseball. What do you do?
Let me know when game 4 of the World Series is. I'll turn it on. All right, guys.
I'll do that, Andy. I'll make sure I'll let you know.
Yeah, send me a text. Tell me tonight. Start watching, gentlemen. And I love going in person, but watching on TV is painful.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you for the time.
All right, two
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah.